Hello and welcome to Embedded. I'm Alicia White, here with Christopher White.
Welcome to the Amp Hour. I'm Chris Gamble of Contextual Electronics.
This week we are joined by Chris Gamble from the Amp Hour.
On the Amp Hour. You're on the Amp Hour.
To create a spectacle of a show.
You're on the Amp Hour. I don't know.
No. I'm pretty sure you're on Embedded.
Welcome to the Amp Hour.
Welcome to Embedded.
This is where you say your show name or where you're from, what you do.
I'm Alicia White from Embedded FM.
On the Amp Hour.
I'm Chris White, also from Embedded.fm. What?
I was thinking we could call this Enemy Cast. What do you think about that?
I was going for Embedded.
Embedded?
Oh, I like that. Yeah,
what
Embedded.
About the Amp Hour?
What?
The Amp Hour.
The Emb Hour. I like that too. I'm writing these down. Don't worry.
Yeah. So for anybody who hasn't figured that out, the Enemy Podcasts have joined together this week in order to reduce our holiday quote workload, and this will be cross-posted to both.
I was just thinking this is actually 2016 taking a final spit in our eye. You know, you thought you've seen it all. Nope. You have to endure a mashing up of shows. So you have to hear Chris talking about embedded stuff and Chris and Alicia talking about electronic stuff, and
and then
opinions will fly.
If you want to keep up with both shows, you have to listen to it twice.
That's a good point.
I think so.
Oh yeah.
Oh, but I do have an Embedded FM announcement. Do you mind?
Okay.
So we are doing an Embedded FM party. It's mostly going to be a meet and greet with like 2-minute "Who are you?" things, and the goal is that you either wear a hat or bring a hack. It will be in Aptos, California, so you can go to Santa Cruz or to the Monterey Bay Aquarium before you come visit us from 2 to 5, and there will be snacks and RSVPs.
2 to 5 on what day?
January 28th, the last Saturday in January of
come randomly at 2 o'clock.
17. RSVP instructions will be in our show notes, maybe in the Amp Hour show notes, but I'm not so sure.
I'll put them in too.
I mean,
why?
We might need to be selective.
Maybe
here.
I'll mess them up a little bit. You know, maybe January 27th. Why not?
No, January 28th.
Maybe I'll just give your home address. Well, that sounds like fun. I think there's a chance I might be there. I think I mentioned that.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, it is not easy to get where you guys are. It's not Uberable. I've talked about that, unfortunately.
No, but there will be people coming from the San Jose area, so you might be able to carpool from there. I don't know about San Francisco, but maybe. And I haven't gotten an RSVP from Berkeley, which I have to tell you is quite a ways.
The entire college?
Yeah, that's... They're bringing the pot brownies.
Fit that.
But the traffic shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, on a Saturday, right?
In January.
Well, I have been down there once and visited you guys, and it is a beautiful area, and you are a gracious host, and I'm sure this will be a wonderful event for all people. So
yeah, it should be fun, and mostly it's so people can meet other people who are interesting. And
yeah,
do
you guys have any resources for if they do want to carpool? Is there some way to contact one another?
Why don't I actually manage to get an RSVP system set up first? I mean, have you used Eventbrite?
I have. Yeah, that's what we use for SuperCon.
Well, that's probably what we'll use, and maybe we'll... Yeah. Anyway, yes, organization details will be organized later.
They're all
but
smart,
they will be
smart
organized.
people. They can figure it out for themselves.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do an open thread on our blog, and people can organize themselves in the comments.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay.
Well, that's very cool. Amp Hour announcements. Dave's not here.
Dave's not here, man.
I hear Dave's not ever coming back.
He's not coming back for the rest of the year. That's right. So yeah, he'll be out. I'll be doing shows without him. He's going on vacation. I learned last show, during the show, while we talk with Mighty O.
Did you just find out at that point and it just came across the wire? Yeah. Oh my God, I'm going on vacation.
The downsides of, like your respective co-hosts, live in the same house. Mine lives 10,000 miles from me, so there is a little bit of a...
You'd be surprised how many vacations I'm not aware of.
How was the show with Jeff last week?
That was wonderful. It was great catching up with Jeff. And actually, I was surprised. So he was telling us all about his Bell Labs trip. He went to go to New Jersey, and he told us about visiting the different Bell Labs sites. And then I got surprised that at some point I put it on my Amazon wish list, and I got that book under the Christmas tree this year. And so I just started it, and it's just as good as he said. So I'm very excited about that book. It's like a history of Shockley, and that's the only name I remember, but Shockley and
Shannon.
Shannon, that's right, yeah. But the one they start with, it's really interesting, kind of just hearing like the crossover stuff, because I think maybe it's Kelly, that's his last name. But they're following him, and you could tell he's going to be, like some big name at Bell Labs. But then it's like, oh yeah, he's also the lab assistant for Millikan with the oil drop experiment. It's like, whoa, like, okay. It's just like the concentration of brain power is intense.
Cool.
I'm excited for that book.
I'm excited for that episode. I haven't listened to it yet because I had to do a bunch of prep, but for our show for other episodes. But
how are you guys doing on podcast listening this year?
My goodness.
Up some.
Yeah.
I think he's asking what we listen to.
Oh,
not
we'll
having to listen.
Yeah. I'm doing terribly with my listening this year. That's what I was really getting towards.
I'm down from what I usually do. I have fewer opportunities to be not focused on something, I guess.
Yeah, I am making it through about 3/4 of a podcast a week, which means that I'm falling behind at a startling rate, and I am not caught up on anything. I'm going to have to declare bankruptcy and just restart.
Yeah, I think that's okay. And honestly, I think that stuff, it comes back across, right? So like for, I missed a couple of your shows, and then like, I think someone else told me about when Alan was on, so I went back and listened to that one. And then I think we were talking, you both and I were talking, and you mentioned one show, and I went back and listened to that one. And I think that just happens too. You hear about kind of like the shows that are kind of worth kind of going back for specifically, and then you kind of get back in the groove.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I had a bunch I tried to start listening to that I just couldn't get into. Also, some new ones, and because a lot of the ones I've listened to, I'm getting a little tired of. Some of the just more general.
Right. You did that post
ones.
earlier.
Yeah.
You did like the post about all those different podcasts. I remember that was a pretty good post on your blog.
Yeah, you contributed to that too. But it was good to have a list of all the things you could listen to. But then I had to admit that I wasn't looking to add anything.
Right. It happens, right? I was just listening to Ezra Klein was just on the Tim Ferriss show, and so I was listening to that one. And he kind of talked about like that's how he gathers a lot of information these days, even though he's a journalist and he has his own podcast and stuff. And he said like he just kind of each morning he scrolls through and just kind of sees what's interesting, and that's what it's really come to. It's like there's so many podcasts out there. It's like you kind of really just look down and see what is interesting in the moment, because what else you can do?
Yeah, and it's like a podcast to become a magazine. You don't read the whole magazine necessarily, right? So
some people do. Some people are completists, and I think that's cool. And I am happy that one of our recent guests talked about listening at even faster rates.
1.8.
Well, he was
2.0.
over 2, and I have climbed up to over 1.8. And for the podcasts that I'm listening to for the information, it's totally worth it. For the podcasts I listen to for the relaxation, that's defeating the purpose.
I don't listen to much for information. Yeah. I tend to read more for that. I don't know. Listening to podcasts doesn't really sink in.
Yeah, it's more like
unless I take notes.
It's like ricochet knowledge, It's like I just mentioned that Ezra Klein thing, right? Like that's just like one thing that I remembered from that entire show, basically. It's
I've been reading.
It's kind of weird how they brainstormed that.
A book about gaining expertise. It's called Peak, and it's by Anders Ericsson and Robert Poole. And one of the things that they said was that every time you hear information or read information, if you have had any exposure to it in the past, it's easier. And so podcasts for me are to some extent that initial information that I'm not getting all of, but when I come across it next time, it will feel a little more familiar, and I'll sync up a little bit more than I would have if it had been totally cold.
Oh, I've heard of that rather than I know what that is in detail.
Yeah, it's the I've heard of that, which is enough.
Right. Oh, so it like kind of makes your ears perk up, and then you'll pay more attention when it kind of, it's like the filtering mechanism that humans have, or what?
Learning the second time is always easier. And so if you can just do a crappy job of learning the first time, right?
Done.
That's where I'm at with impedance.
Hey, me too.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Should we do lightning round? I know that's
Sure.
something we do on our show. You don't do on yours.
That's okay. I wrote a couple questions down for you guys.
Okay.
All right.
I don't have any in front of me.
Well, you can use the one that's in the show notes, and I'll use the one on our massive ring of random questions. So the first one, New Year's resolution?
Get better at prototyping.
640 by 480.
What? I don't know what that means. Sorry.
Resolution, 640 by 480. It's like a video resolution.
Oh.
It was a pun.
Was that a trick question? I feel like I'm
No.
No, that was my answer.
That was Chris's answer.
Oh,
I was answering the same question. I'm sorry.
okay, got it. Yeah, okay.
All right, what's your favorite fictional robot?
Bender,
Bite my shiny metal
can.
Yeah.
Mine is R2D2. Just
Nice.
for the record. I mean, BB-8 is
Okay.
wonderful, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't R2D2, man. Okay, your turn, Chris Gamble.
Horowitz and Hill, or Cedra and Smith.
Horowitz and Hill.
Do you know the other one?
I looked up the other one, and it's some electronics book that I've never heard of, so I'm definitely...
Technically, they both are. Yeah.
I have
No,
the
I've
first
heard-
one.
I've
I've read the
Horowitz and
first
You've heard
one.
of it. Sorry. I meant they were both electronics book. Not that you would. Okay, sorry. Salier or Analog Discovery?
Say there.
So, yeah.
Even now.
You've used them both?
No, I haven't used Analog Discovery yet.
Should we?
Yeah, no, I think it's. I've been using it more. It's.
But it's analog.
What?
It says
No, it's a
analog
little-
in the title.
No, it's a little. Alvaro just gave a talk about it. He was included that in his prototyping text. So Alvaro has been on your show,
Yes.
and he did a talk at the San Francisco meetup I do, and he was just talking about firmware and hardware prototyping tools, and he had both of those in there. But I also use Analog Discovery too. But basically, it's like a 2-channel scope. It's got a 16-channel logic analyzer. It's got AWG output, power supply sort of output, like a variable up to 5 volts.
That's nice.
So
And
yeah, it's cool little box.
USB-C?
No,
No, it looks like regular
it
USB.
doesn't stream. It's not streaming like the
And
Salier.
about $260 US
Yeah,
today.
unless you're a student, you can get it like $199.
Aren't we all students of the world?
Yeah, I don't know how they do that.
Yeah,
So.
I think it's just whether or not you're willing to say you are.
I like to learn things.
Got it. Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
you'd start your own .edu, embedded.edu.
That's got to be taken. Or we should get it right now.
Actually, it's hard to get. I think you need like an ABET accreditation or some kind of accreditation to get a .edu.
Yeah, I'm not sure they just give those out willy-nilly.
Yeah.
So you've used the Analog Discovery and you've used the Salier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there much difference?
Not for the same things though. Well, it's a real scope. I mean, well, not a real scope being, quote unquote, but it's. I think the sampling method is a little bit closer to an oscilloscope than a Salier is.
Okay.
So, yeah, they're both. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're both great tools. So,
Let's see. My next lightning round question. Something you did not want to learn or do that you're glad you got through.
all of programming. Saying I got through it though is not really true. I don't know. Yeah, pointers. Let's go with pointers. Yeah. I'm not sure I'm through it, quote unquote, but I'm glad I learned it and I hated it.
Pointers are cool.
Yeah, sure.
Pointers are like words.
What do you both answer for that one?
Wait, I mean, is the point that I have to have looked back in retrospect and think I'm glad I learned that, or just that I survived learning something?
I think you have to say you're glad you learned it, right?
Oh man,
It's your question, isn't it?
no, that's her question.
Where am I?
I was going to say chemistry.
You're glad you learned chemistry?
No, but see, that was the part.
Oh.
Survived
if I take the glad part
Yeah.
out, I have a whole litany of answers.
Yeah, I think the glad would be the...
Yep.
For me, it would be ML.
I don't know what that is.
It's a
It's like XML
programming
without the
language,
X.
and I thought at the time it was stupid, and and now I still think it's sort of not useful to my career. But it got me started on the track of other languages do have some benefit, even if it's not readily apparent, which falls in line with the whole there's no one true way. But sometimes I forget that because everybody should do it my way, damn it.
Right.
It's
Wait,
a
is
good
ML
reminder.
markup language? Is that markup or no? Something else?
No, it's something else.
No, it's more Pascal-like.
It's old.
Oh,
It's
okay.
old. It's not new, but it was one of those things that I just kicking and screaming did not want to learn because it was dumb. But
That's how I feel about programming too. Sorry. I'm trying.
All right.
I'm trying.
Let's try this one. Share a tip or trick you think everyone should know.
How are these lightning questions?
I
These
don't
are-
know. They've gotten much more like,
Yeah.
sort of flashlight questions.
A tip or trick everyone should know. You touch the soldering iron to the pin and then apply solder to both.
no, that's really useful
See,
because
that's great.
it's
Yeah,
so
see,
easy to think you should just glop the solder onto the soldering iron and then somehow.
Yeah.
It's not called a glopping iron.
Yeah. Well, according to all the non-U.S. listeners, it's also called a soldering iron. You don't pronounce the L. Oh, stupid yank. Ugh. I get that one a lot. Yeah, I know there's an L in there. There's a lot of letters I don't pronounce, folks. Come on.
Well, if the L wasn't there, we'd pronounce it soldering iron. So
Yeah, right.
I mean, we are pronouncing the L. It's just kind of,
Right.
smearing into the rest of it. It's fine.
I'm always feggening interest in people telling me about letters that should be pronounced when they really don't need to be. Is that how you pronounce it? Feggening?
Yes.
Feggening?
And Santa comes down the chimbley.
My tip or trick that I think everyone should know is about map files, which is that map files are awesome.
Yeah, that's the one that lines up the memory locations and stuff. Is that right?
Yeah, it's PostCompile, and it's at the link stage. It not only creates an executable, your linker not only creates an executable, it also creates this file, or it can create this file that tells you where it put everything. And it is so handy for figuring out, like, pointers have gone bad. So where did you start out? And then you find the bad pointer, and then you look in the map file and it's there, or you're out of memory, or you're out of RAM. The map file just has all this information and nobody thinks to look there. But it's super cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Do you have one?
Sure. C99 struct initializers. You don't
And
have
for
to,
the electronics
you
audience,
don't have to fill in your struct with lots of painful like accessors later or just remembering the position of stuff. You can go brace and then dot and then the member name equals blah and then comma and then dot and then the next one. You look it up. C99 struct initializers.
C99. Something. Okay.
Structure initializers.
Nice. Those are good tips for
Okay. Oh, here's a good
C.
one. Least favorite electrical component.
I would say depletion mode FETs. Because all these years later, I just don't get them still. I'm terrible with, yeah. Outside like the normal stuff, I'm pretty bad, so.
I don't like inductors.
I don't like anything that goes in a
Inductors?
ball grid array.
That's not a component.
All right.
That's a package.
Yeah, that's,
Well, then a ball grid package. It's not a component. Fine,
How about
resistors. I don't like
any
resistors,
component-
okay?
any component that is sufficiently complex to require a BGA, like a FPGA, right? Anything.
Fine. I don't. That's it. You told me to do the ones in the notes. Now I've done them.
Oh, fine.
You've got the whole thing over
What's
there.
the-
I got nothing.
So I think about your so you always ask the question about the what language do you think what should be taught in school first?
Oh, I like to ask
What
that
is your
one.
standard answer for that?
I like to ask that one after what language do you prefer to use? Because I like it when people have a different answer that they want to use from what they think should be taught. And it makes sense that there should be a difference between what should be taught first. I mean, personally, I think that Scratch should be taught, and I think it should be taught in elementary school.
Okay, well.
Because it is a beautiful language that is really, truly a language and is so powerful and can make things move. It can make stories. You can make videos and cartoons. And yet it is still truly, honestly a programming language. But it's not a language I've ever used for more than goofing off.
So what's your real answer to the question?
Well, like, what about if you say, you usually say intro college class, right?
Yeah.
So is there a different answer then?
Well, yeah, I guess it is a different. For a CS degree, then no, Scratch. But if non-CS degree, I would still consider Scratch. It's still really useful. For a CS degree, I think C or C++, because I think that you have to teach pointers early. It is not necessarily something people use a lot, but understanding how the microcontroller actually works makes everything else useful.
Yeah, but most CS people aren't programming microcontrollers.
That's the problem.
CS people aren't computer engineering people.
Right,
see, I think that's the real question too. Is like, should the CS people that are going to go work at Facebook be separated out from the people that are going to be working on, low level, low power stuff? And it's like that's always,
I think
like
eventually. I think that's a specialization that you probably should come to late in undergraduate. But I think they can be joined for the first couple of years. And I think...
So maybe there should be like a course, like an intro course should be like intro to big machines, intro to little machines. Like that could be a way to separate them out.
I guess an intro Python, because that is the most generically used across many...
Where we went, we had to take the same intro CS course as the people who were non-CS majors or non-CS concentration people, and that was Pascal. So everybody took Pascal.
I didn't take that class, but it was Pascal.
Well, fine. You tested out of it or whatever.
No.
Then you didn't graduate.
So what about if it was not in a school? What if it was... What's the language that someone should start if they're not in a school?
Python?
Because I think about these things for my course, right?
Python's a great language.
We got to pick something. Yeah.
Scratch is a great language. The Arduino processing is a fine language on the surface. And once you get under the surface, you're in C++, which is pretty complicated, but you're under the surface, so it's okay.
JavaScript, people would probably say it's not a very good language, but it's easy to work with because everybody's got a browser.
I guess so. I still prefer. Well, I prefer
that's true.
Python.
Yeah.
But yeah, none of those are really going to give you a sense of the machine.
But you've been working on Python. How are you getting into pointers in Python, or are those separate?
You talking about me?
Yeah.
I'm not that deep. I've been working in MicroPython first off, not Python. And I haven't been doing that much. But that's kind of what I was interested in because, I mean, I said my goal for 2017 my resolution for 2017 is not 640 by 480. It is to get better at prototyping. And that's kind of tied to the whole MicroPython thing. And I had Tony on the show to talk about that. And I just think, I've shifted a lot of my thinking about all this stuff. Right? I used to kind of push back against Arduino and whatever, but now it's just I just need to get stuff done as fast as possible.
Yeah,
and I don't know. I feel like it's kind of like that whole first pass, second pass thing you mentioned earlier, right? It's like maybe the first time through you're just implementing someone else's code, but then you notice that you're initializing variables, or you're typing int before you type a variable name. You see a variable name, and then just kind of notice it the next time around. It just kind of triggers. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just trying to get stuff done, then C is not the way to go.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I would go C++ or Python for that. For a microcontroller-ish system, it would make more sense to me because you don't need to get that deep into it.
Which, C++?
Well, to do straight C. C++ only because that's what Mbed and Arduino secretly are based on.
I can tell you this. I remember my first... So I went into college not having programmed at all. And I remember my first day of intro to programming class, and holy moly, that was a rough experience. I didn't even know what I was looking at, And I had that book.
You hadn't done anything beforehand.
Yeah. Do you remember the book with ants?
Yeah, the book with ants. Yeah, I think so. I think I remember what that is.
It was not that great. Some people loved it, but
I went to college and I didn't know that they were sending me to a summer school because I was so underprepared for the college I went to. And the summer school had calculus, which I had in high school, but when I got to the class, I didn't know what the flattened S symbol was. So clearly I had missed some part of calculus, like the second half. And at the same summer camp, they had programming, and they did the intro to CS programming that Chris was talking about. But it was different during the summer, and it was obvious. It was like the math was the hardest thing I had ever seen. And they had all these stupid limits and the mean value theorem, and it was so hard. And then we'd go into the CS class, and I'd be like, this is how the world works. This makes so much sense to me. This is so trivially easy. And I'd see other people struggle and not understand. It was like my brain was wired for computers. And I was so lucky because I would have failed both classes and I would have been out of there right away.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like, so, I mean, this is obviously an educational argument in general, but I remember a lot of strife in my own life about like, why are we learning all this stuff? And it's like, yeah, eventually you need to learn that stuff. But obviously I've turned that around a little bit. And I think that, it's more important to just do stuff to start with. But that's kind of what you're talking about with like seeing the code up front. Right? I mean, like seeing it kind of was understanding it before you dug into the, what is the background of all programming, right?
No, really. It was anything they said in that class. It was not a struggle.
That's great.
And it was so fortunate. And I have met people who did that in chemistry and biology and other things. And it was like I found my language. It was one reason that I always tell people to try lots of stuff, because there may be something out there that is somehow your innate ability. To be fair, my mom pointed out years later that they had given me a computer when I was pretty young. I mean, like 7 or 10 age, and that I had done lots of programming then for about 2 years, and then after that,
you do the basic entry stuff,
yes.
Or what were you doing then?
It was all the basic stuff, and it was trying to figure out even some of the games, like playing Lemonade is really a programming problem if you think about it that way. And all of the strategy games are in some way.
What is Lemonade? Sorry, I don't know what that means.
Lemonade stand. You run a lemonade stand. You set the prices. People come.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So you're not saying on a computer. It's not a computer game that I missed.
It is a computer game.
A computer game.
And you missed it. But it was from late 70s, so don't feel bad.
Okay. I think that resurfaced as a drug dealer game on my TI-83 calculator. I remember that game.
Sounds probable and sad at the same time.
Terrible, yeah. Especially because it was a really fun game. I mean, sorry.
Yeah, so I did feel very at home programming, but it is possible that is, again, back to doing it twice, is that I didn't even remember that I had that computer for a few years.
Right.
Before it was taken away again.
Okay, so what about if that question became not about what programming language should be taught in intro class? It should be, or what if it was on the electronic side? It would be like, where should you start for the electronic side of things?
I think you should have to answer that. I mean, it's a question.
You're the guest on the Amp Hour.
I mean, I still don't know where to start with electronics sometimes. I get these great ideas for fantastic, amazing boards and implementations, and then I sit down and think, what is the first step? And my first step is, you know what I should do? I should call it double E.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I know I can draw a schematic by hand, and I know I have many versions of Eagle installed, none of which I can use because I just install the new one and then get to that part of the tutorial, and then I give up for the day, and 6 months later I install a new one.
There's a problem. You're an Eagle.
That's true.
I don't know. My first exposure to electronics was when I was a little kid doing little Heath kit things.
Yeah.
And I had some little electronics kit, but I didn't really learn anything, and it didn't stick. And the next formal exposure, I think, was in college physics, where there's a small section where they go through basic circuits and Ohm's law and Kirchhoff's laws and all that stuff. And that didn't stick.
Well, that was part of E&M. None of E&M stuck.
Thanks.
Spherical cow emitting milk in all directions.
So, yeah, I mean, it's still a bit of a mystery, all of that stuff. I don't know how I would suggest somebody teach that differently. I would think that these days it's like so my first step is usually when people ask me that, like outside of college at least, I say go get an Arduino, like honestly, because the first thing you should do is blink the LED on the Arduino, but then if that doesn't get your motor going, then that's fine, but then you should have to do it with something else, and then you should switch to a tricolor LED, and then you should switch to, like it's like really you gotta until the person asks, wait, why does the resistor matter, right? That kind of, I guess even an Arduino kind of doesn't. But yeah, that's kind of my worry is now you can just buy a microcontroller and hook up 3.3 or 5 to it, and you're pretty much off to the races. And then you can, you can learn about pull-ups, but that's just a trick, right? or about current limiting resistors for LEDs. You don't have to know what that really means.
Well, there's so many times,
and you can't build on top of that, right? If with that knowledge, you can't go and I need an analog circuit to do X. Well, you're screwed.
And there's so many times that you can do 3 volts or 5 volts, and your system will work with whichever one is wrong for a little while. Sometimes, when the weather's right. And yet, if you don't understand that basic part, how do you go further?
Well, you can understand that without being able to understand any other kind of analog circuit.
Well, I mean, I have used a 5-volt Arduino with 3-volt like opto isolators, and it works fine. But I know that that's not a good long-term product solution. That's a fine prototype on my desk, and occasionally, except stuff goes wrong. But I know it's not a good idea, but I can't explain why it's not a good idea. And I don't know how to get from where I am to being able to explain that. Because once I get into analog things like that, it just, we put in a level shifter. Yeah, but that's not satisfactory.
Yeah, I would say that I think that those are two separate issues, right? One is like a troubleshooting thing, like you're talking about with like, why should or I shouldn't do these certain things. But the other one is, I think what Chris said is when are these other solutions even needed, right? And that's usually the stuff that I see people doing interesting things with, where I'm like, oh wow, you're trying that. There's way better ways to do these kind of things, right?
Oh yeah.
So actually, my friend was just asking me the other day. He's like, well, I want to do a PWM circuit, but like, how do I, and obviously it's very easy with a microcontroller, but sometimes you don't want to do a microcontroller. And it's like, well, so how would both of you do a PWM circuit? If you needed to just have say you wanted to change a PWM's duty cycle with like a potentiometer, how would you go about doing that kind of thing?
I feel like I'm in a final that I haven't gone to class for, and that's one of the questions. And I'm just staring at that question going, God, I've made so many poor choices.
I would pick up the Forrest Mims book that sits by my desk. I don't remember which it is, probably the Intro to Electronics. And I would look through it for a rectifier. And then I would try to change the frequency of the rectifier.
What are you rectifying?
He wanted a square wave. I mean, he said PWM, right? So I can't just make it different levels. Otherwise, it would be like a potentiometer.
The rectifier takes AC and turns it into DC. You want something that takes DC and turns it into AC.
Right. An anti-rectifier? Is that what that's called?
I think it's called an inverter.
See, but I'm sure that MIMS would put them on the same page for me, right?
Well, I mean, I'd start with some sort of oscillator, but then it wouldn't give me a square wave.
Yeah, we want to change the frequency of the oscillator. But then I would be like, why do you want a PWM? Why don't you just have direct drive at different levels? Wouldn't that be easier? Because that's just a pot and a resistor hooked up in some magical configuration that I don't really know.
Because maybe the device you're driving doesn't work at a lower voltage.
Well, so there's voltage, then there's frequency, and then there's duty cycle, right?
Yeah.
So those are all three different things.
I mean, but she's talking about just being DC. If your PWM's RMS comes out to 0.8 volts, the device still might do something. But if you give it 0.8 volts DC, it might not, right?
Well, I'm just talking about generating a square wave signal.
I know.
That is.
We're trying to get away from that because neither of us know the answer. So we're just talking about other stuff.
Okay. No, so this was a problem that was posed to me that I was like, like normally I would just it's easy to throw a microcontroller at that, right?
Yes.
That's especially even so you ask like a first year college student that, right? And the first thing they're going to say is like, I'll just analog read into an Arduino and then PWM analog out onto whatever one of the pins is, right?
Sure.
Simple,
Heck yeah,
right?
I can totally do that.
Yeah, I can do that.
Right, and
100%.
that is
although PWM on
sufficient,
Arduino
right?
is yucky, but still.
Right, but the main thing being that is actually quite a satisfactory answer until you put qualifiers on it. It's like, you can't use a microcontroller. Okay, fine.
Well, it's
right?
kind of like,
usually...
I mean, that answer is kind of like, I need to carry this flower pot from my backyard to my front yard. The correct answer is, maybe a wheelbarrow. But the Arduino answer is, I buy a truck and I drive it down to my backyard and I drive over everything in my house. At the end of it, I own a truck that doesn't do anything.
I can do other things.
Well, I can, but I don't need it to do anything else for that project.
Right. But it might waste a lot of gasoline and but that was just simply an example of where an analog solution might be required or might be better than another thing. And my answer, by the way, was take a comparator on the input. The one input is just a reference voltage. The other side, you put in a triangle wave, and then basically with the reference level, you can change the square wave output, right? Because it's gonna, when the triangle wave crosses that reference voltage, then it's gonna flip high or low to the rails.
Sure, but where'd you get the triangle wave, Chris? Seems like
the triangle wave is simple to generate. So
pointers are trivial.
Yeah. The answer is easy and left as an exercise to the reader.
Right. So another thing that happened though. So you both know Mike Stish, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Hackaday
and so Mike
Mike
is the editor of Hackaday, the managing editor of Hackaday. And so I interact with him at my job, and we did this really fun thing called an unconference at work when I was out there last time. And so it was just everybody. I talked about MicroPython and basically the things I didn't know about and the things I've been struggling with. Mike actually did this really cool thing. I think he's going to end up writing about it eventually. But he just went back and was just doing analog circuits, just using single transistors at a time. And he was building little Christmas trees and stuff like that. And honestly, I think that's the best kind of stuff. If you do actually want to learn analog, like honestly, I mean, I'd say 5 to 6 days out of the week, I'm still pretty confused by transistors. I can use them. I've used them a lot, but
you can't see inside them. They're opaque. So.
Yeah, well, so are
you can't see the little man.
There's a whole lot more transistors in there. So, but that's the kind of thing where it's like once you get to the point where you actually do want to learn that stuff, I think that's actually when it does make a lot of sense.
Well, and that's advice that I don't take from myself, right? Because whenever anybody asks, how do I learn a new programming language or how do I learn a new programming technique? It's like, okay, well, you find a project you want to do and do it.
Exactly.
You're not going to learn it from a book. You're sitting and reading about
unless the book gives you a really good project that you're really into.
Oh, sure. But when I was a kid, I tried to learn a lot of this stuff just by reading textbooks. And I was like, wow, didn't stick at all. Why don't I know this? I read this book. So I think that's definitely probably true of everything in electronics too. It's like, okay, make some stuff and make some mistakes and learn by doing.
On the other side, having gotten frustrated with electronics and whatnot, and having tried to explain why schematics didn't work, I did actually sit down with the Forrest Mims book and read through it and take notes and try to, he would say, I'm going to build this circuit, and I would try to build that circuit from the information he gave me in my head on paper, and then I would translate to what he had. And I learned a lot. I gained a lot of confidence, but I didn't use it. And so now I'm back to kind of knowing where some of these things are and not being able to have them off the top of my head. So I don't think books are are useless.
No, I wasn't saying they were
nice
useless.
Sometimes to have the information organized.
I don't think they're useless. I think you need to do both.
Yeah, I think that if I had done that book and also put the hardware in the right spots and lit up the lights and kept building on that, it would have stuck and it would have been great. It was just, I went back to programming or whatever other hobby came my way.
Well, and so I've heard you both talk about capacitors and how those kind of puzzle you at
No, they don't.
various
That's
times.
a joke. I believe me, I know how capacitors work.
Well, I know you know how they work, but I'm more like implementation and stuff like that.
No,
It's more like mental
I think
models.
it's the bypass capacitor joke, right?
Yeah, it's...
Is it really? I mean, maybe I'm hearing it wrong.
That we had many people write in explaining bypass capacitors to us. And I do sort of understand them. But it is still at the point of, okay, I understand we need them. And I understand if things go badly, how to add more. But from a blank design, I don't know how many to put in other than what the
as many
data
as are
sheet
needed.
says.
As many as are needed.
Exactly. As many as are needed, but no more.
Right. No, tons more. Come on.
They're cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, I treat them like salt. They're good to have everywhere.
Yeah, that's right. I get a little frustrated when like I have people ask me like, well, what's the answer? And I'm, to some question, I'm like, I have no idea. And it's like, I feel like I don't know. I hope it's okay that I say that sometimes.
Well, I think that's a misunderstanding of expertise, right? If you're an expert in a particular discipline, everyone thinks you have the ability to just answer any question immediately. When sometimes questions are actually, that's a giant word problem. And yes, I know how to solve it, but I don't really want to right now.
Somebody asked me to do firmware update on their processor, and I'm like, well, you have about 57 options. And since you're on that processor, there are about 30 of them you can just eliminate because it's just not worth it. But it leaves you still with 27 options, and there are lots of good reasons for them.
I feel like the right answer to that is to hand them your rate sheet and be like, here's how much I charge per hour, right? I mean, I don't know.
No, sometimes people email us and they make good blog posts.
Oh, that helps.
Yeah.
How's the blog going? Is it... I remember warning you of my engineer blog's run out, where I ran out of motivation for it. Is it still
I ran out of motivation immediately.
Okay.
One
down.
You never really... You didn't sign up for it, so that was fair.
I also didn't really sign up for it.
Okay.
So the blog is going well. It depends on what the goals of the blog are. I tried to convince myself and my two other blog writers, Andre Chichak and Chris Svek, that the goal is only partially for listeners. A large part of it is to practice writing and to practice explaining these fairly complex embedded systems points in a way that you could then just pull them up when you need them, whether you're in a meeting or whether you're teaching a class or whatever. So if we all agree that the goal is to practice writing and practice putting these things out there, then it's a great success. We've all done really well. If the goal is to rule the world through getting lots of people to read the blog, we still need to work on it. We're not great on
dominance.
That. It's a lot more content. It is totally free. There are no ads. There's no blinking because I can't stand blinking. But it is a lot of good stuff. Andre's doing ST discovery board, Cortex M4F, and so he's going to have a lot of good features he can implement, big stuff. And Svek is doing MSP 430, and he's looking at things from a very low-level microcontroller perspective, even assembly. Not necessarily that you need to write in assembly, but that you should know what's happening down there. So they're doing a great job. I kind of bop in and out answering questions from listeners or working on my own set of projects, or even adding some things like Andre did a bunch of things on UARTs, and then I posted, well, what good is a UART, and put up code for a command console. And I really liked that because it made a whole bundle, and someone can look at it and say, oh, that's what it's for, and then 6 months later they may have to do this for their job, and they know where to go. And so it's a place. But yeah, it's a giant time suck. Yes, you did warn me that it would be a giant time suck, and it is in fact. But
I mean, it's still a repository though. Like that's what's nice.
Yes.
Yeah, you never know if it's going to be valuable or anything like that. But I totally agree that if it's not like internally driven, you're never gonna. Yeah, you'll never make it.
And we've all shared editing duties, and editing somebody else's work, especially if you have to do it in a way that you know they're going to edit yours, and you want to be friends after. It's really useful and valuable to affecting your own writing. My writing has gotten better because I know that if I hassle one of them about explaining things in an inverted way, where you start out complicated and you get simple, if I do that in my writing, they will totally call me on it because it's not the way you teach things.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know if I may have mentioned it on past shows, but I've been using this thing. I've been writing a little bit more, but not as much as I hopefully will be in the new year. But there's this thing called HemingwayApp.com. Have you ever seen that?
I think I know what you're talking about.
And and if you write too complicated, it highlights and says, this sentence is way more complicated. Just be direct.
Now, that's not the one where if you don't keep typing, it deletes everything you've written.
No, that's different.
No, I mentioned that one. Yeah, no, that's the most dangerous. Or you guys told me about that, I think, or someone on the forum told me about that. Yeah, Chris did. But yeah, that one is very motivating, and I have mentioned that on the show, I know. That's the one, yeah, that's very motivating. But no, this is more about, like, it highlights colors and, like, adverbs aren't, they just tell you to always get rid of adverbs, right? Just because they don't really actually add that much for clear writing. And then it actually gives you a readability score, which, this is not, like, super unique. There are other readability type things out there, but this is just one that really resonated with me. So I use it. I downloaded the offline app for it really gamifies it. That's what's really fun. It's like, oh, that sentence is hard to read. I'm going to try it again because I don't know. I used to think that, like, writing was, trying to sound smart, but it's really about just trying to get, like you said, trying to get the idea across is often the hardest thing, and I don't know.
Yeah, well, it depends on the kind of writing. Technical writing, being flowery is not an advantage.
Unless you're writing a patent.
Oh, God.
And then your goal for the Hemingway app is to be all red.
That's true. Yeah, they could make the opposite of it, right?
So here's a question for you. I know you have written a lot in the past on your blog, and I know you do some writing for contextual electronics, and now you have this goal to write more. Why? I mean, why is writing important to you?
Well, part of it is for my job, so that's just part of that. I mean, it's just part of what I'm doing for that. But I think one of the things that's nice is it kind of just gives so I'll answer that with a different non-writing answer. So, like, one thing that I really like about Google Photos is that it throughout, it does, like, the backup sync, and like iPhotos does that stuff too, where it just backs up all your stuff. I have a really bad memory and kind of like where I am at any point in life, like where I was, who I was with, all that stuff. Like my memory just doesn't work that well. And using the Photos app for that is really useful. I think similarly, writing, having regular writing kind of puts a line in the sand and says, this is the stuff I believe in, this is what I'm working on. That is important, right? It's kind of just, it's important to make a case, even if you end up having to go back and correct it. I think that it solidifies opinions and makes you think critically about it. So
the self-analysis, the introspection part, is that
the navel gazing? Yes.
Okay.
No, I don't know.
I think
it's more just about critical thinking around issues, so that I'm not just spouting on the Amp Hour with Dave. I don't know.
No, writing is a very different process, and there've been a lot of studies about how people take notes and how if you actually take notes, that things stick better. And that's not even writing necessarily; it's just using a different pathway to reinforce information. But yeah, it's completely different from sitting and noodling in your own thoughts to actually putting something down on paper. There's a whole bunch of things that happen in your brain that are different than if you're just sitting and thinking or shooting the breeze with somebody.
I think there's other positive examples of that, like that are not necessarily just writing, but it's almost just like the social proofing side of things. Like GitHub, I think, is a great example of like it's not like bragging, but it's just, here's my work. It's just regular. That chart is one of the most motivating things for some people, of just like, today was a dark green day, right? It's like, that's a good day. It's not that that's the only measure of progress. Like, making lots of commits is not the only way you can measure progress. However, it does show you weren't just sitting in meetings all day, right? And I know one thing is that sitting in meetings all day is not a good use of time. So even if it's just saying that what I wasn't doing is kind of interesting.
And in addition to that, and the introspection, teaching something is a great way to learn it. I mean, to truly learn it.
Yeah.
And writing something down is a way of teaching what you're thinking about it. And so it's like you learning your own thoughts.
I mean, teaching is terrifying, right?
Yes.
It really is. It's like, oh, well, here's this thing I just said, and I'm pretending to be an expert, and then it's very. I've had a couple of times where I've made a video, and then I rewatch it, and I'm like, that is 100% wrong. Like I'm watching, I'm like, this is the worst. Like, that is just not even close, And then I go and re-record it, and no one's the wiser except for me. But then I definitely learned at that time, right? I mean.
God,
kind of makes me stay up late at night thinking about what I didn't correct, but we'll leave that out.
How is contextual electronics doing?
It's going to, it slowed down a lot during my move, to be honest, in terms of just my content. The other instructors were still making stuff, but yeah, so 2017 is the refocusing on skills, actually. I think I mentioned on the show before, but got a new site up and running, and that's looking good. And yeah, so new stuff on the way. New bench at home. I did catch myself playing that game of like, do you have any friends or maybe if either of you have ever done this? So like, oh, I'll start running when I get a treadmill.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I do
That's
that.
Actually
I actually do
correct.
that with music a lot, or I used to. It's like, oh, well, this isn't working. Maybe I'll get a different piece of gear, and then I'll be better.
Right. Or it won't work until I get a new piece of gear.
Which my wife is looking at me askance right over my shoulder to my new piece of gear, which
oh no,
which has enabled me to play
an immense amount of gear,
which has enabled me to play a lot more. So it's a separate
what is
thing. It's an electronic drum set that I can play at all hours.
Oh, that's fun though. Yeah.
And I wasn't practicing because my regular drums are too loud, and I'm afraid of neighbors.
I think that's a big deal. I switched to from an acoustic upright piano to a keyboard just for that same reason. I have headphones and stuff because you kind of like look around, you're like, dang, this is really making a lot of noise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but it made it hard to buy him stuff for Christmas because he already blew the Christmas budget on his drums.
Oh, right. Well, new sticks, brushes,
No,
I tortured him instead.
Yeah,
it was great.
She designed a puzzle hunt that occupied 3 hours of my Christmas morning. Yes.
Really?
Oh,
can we hear about this? This is very fun.
Yeah. So she distributed clues all around town. And so
town?
Yeah. So we unwrapped presents. She handed me her last present, and it had a little thing around its neck. It was a dinosaur ornament, and it was the first clue, and I had to follow that to the next clue and do the whole thing. And I stepped in a puddle and had to come back and change my shoes. And
it would only have been under a mile, except there was one clue that I thought he knew that.
So there was a summation clue. I had to add up all these other clues to get a final number, and I got the final number. And it was not anything I recognized. So I just threw it in Google Maps, right? Oh, it must be an address. So I threw it in Google Maps, and it pops up. Oh, that's that place we go to all the time. Okay, that makes sense.
Garden center that I like a lot.
So that's the only match. And it's 3/4 of a mile away. Well, that's kind of far, but that's not. She did say she'd wandered over there the other day, so maybe she left the clue there then. And so, yeah, I went a mile and a half out of my way.
It was our P.O. box number, which I write a lot because that's what I use.
Which was actually like 500 yards from where it was. So.
It was not
but it was pretty fun, and she spent a lot of time on it. It was amazing.
It was fun. It was fun to do.
I was extremely tired.
Yes.
What was at the end of the rainbow? Is it?
Just one more little gift.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, okay. So the gift was the hunt.
Yeah, because he blew his budget on the drums, and so
I see.
my goal was to spend all of the angst and energy I would have put into the drums to buying him a gift into doing something else, and so that led to
right. And of course, this will lead to escalation for the rest of
yes
your lives together. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Alicia, did you get anything fun?
Did I get anything fun? I got a giant pile of tweezers.
Whoa! What constitutes a pile of tweezers? And that sounds dangerous, by the way.
There were more.
7. You got 7. I got you
Was it
7
only
tweezers.
7? It seemed like a bigger pile than that.
No, it was only 7.
Okay. But I'm always losing our good electronic tweezers, and so now we have more.
Yeah, I am of the mind that I don't buy good ones. I buy as cheap as possible, and just assume they're going to go bad. Like, you know, like you can get like the super sturdy tipped like Swiss steel whatever.
Yeah.
I don't do those at all.
These
are these fancy?
These were just up from that. I don't think they were super fancy.
They were really, really fancy.
Really?
Very expensive.
Yeah, this is
yes. They came from
dangerous territory.
They came from this little town in Azerbaijan that specializes in tweezers.
Gotcha.
It's called Tweezletown.
Tweezerstone?
Twezzleton.
I don't think that's right.
The 7-piece. Oh, this is $12. Come on, Chris. I was looking at the one that I got. It's a 7-piece precision anti-static ESD. Yeah. No, I was going to actually put the ones in because I actually do like the ones that I got there. It was just like a little kit, like a little kit where they all came together. Pick Snore on Amazon. Great. I'll put the link in.
You got some other stuff. You got some other stuff.
I got some great stuff. So, do you remember The Way Things Work? It was a book that came out.
How Things? Is it The Way Things Work?
I have that as a coffee table book.
Yes.
Well, it's in
you know there's a new version?
It's one of my only books on display. Yes.
There is a new. Well, I was unaware that there was a new version, and it covers things like e-ink and is updated. So I got that. I'm really excited about that.
It still has the mammoths, right? Because that's like the only part that really matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. You need the mammoths.
How do mammoths work? They don't anymore.
I do remember that had CD-ROMs. I remember it had CD-ROMs in the original. Or not the original, but whatever the version I have. It had CD-ROMs was one. And I did look back through it, and there was one that was like, whoa, that's dating itself. Maybe VCRs. I don't know.
It described beta VCRs.
Yeah, it was something that was like, oh, okay, well, it's not, and then you look at it's like, 1993 or 2 or whatever it was, and it made sense for the time, but that's fun.
And we got a Flybricks.
You got me a Flybricks.
What's that?
This was one of the guests we had on our show where they wanted to build a science, technology, engineering, math platform to talk about how things fly, because going beyond robotics. And so it's Lego based, and it's got motors, and then it's got a controller, and you can update the code on the controller, and you can have up to 8 motors, and it's got a controller so you can fly it, although supposedly you can fly it on your phone too. I don't think we've tried the
haven't tried that
Bluetooth version yet. But it's just...
It's cool.
Legos, flying Legos.
It's very hard to fly.
Yes.
Coming from actually flying drones a lot, it's not that easy. Although it's kind of small, so you're tempted to fly it inside, which always makes things more difficult. But yeah, and you can.
Does it bust apart like Legos or what?
Oh yeah,
that's the best part. I mean, you build it, which isn't that hard, and then you fly it, which is pretty hard,
and then you rebuild it,
and then it falls apart. I mean, just like it's like there's some satisfaction with the total destruction of your drone, especially if you know you can put it back together.
Yeah, I want Ben Krasnow's high-speed camera, so you crash it into something and see.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The only trouble with that is the motors are little, really tiny DC motors, and they have these little leads coming off, pigtail leads coming off, and it's really easy for the motors to grab the wires when it crashes. And
then do the little twist-up thing. Yeah.
But, and it's all open source, so that the software you can go play with and change the parameters or rewrite the whole thing if you wanted.
I mean, as a way to learn how control loops work, I'm totally fascinated.
Yeah. And it has you can make a quadcopter with it, or a hexacopter, or an octocopter.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty cool. Yeah.
What about you? What'd you get?
Mostly books. Yeah, what was the other book? I got the Andy Grove book too. Only the Paranoid Survive.
Oh yeah, know that book.
Yeah, and then a couple piano books, and yeah, that's about it. I mean, nothing. And, clothes and blah blah blah. So no, I stopped asking for technology stuff from my family. Like, sure, they have my Amazon wish list, but even still, it's like it seems silly to have stuff on there that I could write off. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
yes, Chris and
I put in a Adafruit order today for like $100 for myself for stuff I'm working on. So it's like that's just as easy, right?
Yeah, and because you have contextual electronics, you can write that off, and it's a big discount. But if your parents got it for you, then it just makes more sense. And then you get the part you want and not last year's part.
Yeah, I was actually
the new resistors this year are really, really hot.
Hey, I do other stuff. Come on.
I'm kidding.
I have an ESP8266. That's the new hotness, right?
Nope.
No?
I think that's the old hotness. Now it's the ESP.
Dang.
What's the new one?
I know.
Yeah, there's a new ESP. There's a new Nordic module that's pretty cute.
Yeah.
The NRF52.
Oh, okay.
What else is neat? I don't know. I haven't quite gotten into this year's. I mean, there's Cortex M4F everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't
so
know that
I've actually been keeping an eye on chipsets just because I've been playing around with MicroPython, and I one of the things that I mentioned I did a presentation on too, and one of the things that it came down to is like, oh, this is pretty limited because the builds are different for every platform, and there's only like 6 platforms, and so it's basically like choosing any other platform of like Raspberry Pi or obviously Raspberry Pi has full blown Python and stuff like that, but it has its same limitations. But I have been paying attention to more chipsets because of that, because you'd have to just drop that exact same thing on there, like modules effectively.
There are more modules coming out. More module. I mean, like the NRF52s have modules, 51s have modules. The ESP has modules. And those are sometimes because it's FCC certified, and that makes life much easier for production. Oh, yeah. But it just seems like it's easier to do more modules unless you have a very low power situation. And then you probably are building your board again.
Well, no. I actually mean not even modules like that. I mean like stuff that MicroPython's actually built for. Like the build is different for every device. So like unless it has that on there.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So there's only like 6 even modules that I can use. So there's like the ESP8266, but then I think it has to be a very specific STM32.
Right.
F30, F4 something. F47? I don't know.
Sure.
But
yeah, it has to have support for all the right peripherals and things.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that was a way more limiting. It's not limiting, but it's more constrained than I thought it was. It's okay. It's just prototyping. But whereas I thought it was, the promise of MicroPython was like the ability to prototype on your own hardware.
Yeah,
that would be really tough.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going around. That it looks like it's going to be an easy prototype platform, but it turns out you have to port it to your hardware first, and that isn't untenable problem if all you wanted to do was prototype.
Yeah, well, I think that's the case with most of these non-C embedded things, like the Node supporting microcontrollers or JavaScript-based ones. They're all, okay, we made it work for this. So I hope you like it. I hope you like this because that's all you get.
Right. Well, and we've seen this a lot. I think we've seen this a lot too. So I know a couple of people that have built stuff on top of, like, I mean, it's much larger in scope and size and stuff, but like people that build products that are using BeagleBone Blacks in them, right? Because they want a Linux computer and all the peripherals and stuff like that, right? So they just build the little, whatever they call theirs. Is it capes?
Yes.
I don't remember. Yeah,
BeagleBone has capes.
But that just kind of pushes the problem back to production level, where it's like, oh crap, now we have to put a $45 computer into this. And, yeah, and it's like that's that's then where the problem is. I don't know. I think the people that are probably doing this best, not the best, but the biggest promise of it is like the Next Thing has been thinking about it with that new module they did where they basically broke out their processor and said, oh, by the way, we're a module too. Like I think in 2017 we'll see more of that because, and Raspberry Pi's tried it with the little SODIMM module, and BeagleBone I think has done it with the they have like a program for buying parts and stuff. But that jump to actually making that one of something to even 10 of something becomes like, holy crap, it's really bad.
Well, that goes back to what I was saying about modules, is that there are now people who are building those modules for some processors, and they're making it generic-ish.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Circuit Co will take your cape and merge it with a BeagleBone, but of course that's not going to be as cheap as if you did it yourself.
Right.
Probably.
Yep.
Circuit Co makes BeagleBone. A lot of people.
They do, and so does Element 14 now.
Right.
Whoever their CM is, I forgot about that, the name. But yeah, I need to have Jason back on the show at some point. I talked to him after Open Hardware Summit. It's good to catch up with him. They're all, I mean, that's great. I mean, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of like, groups like BeagleBone, I mean, the Raspberry Pi Foundation, the BeagleBone Foundation. Like, I'm really glad that there's these groups that are doing this stuff. That actually is, I think, really important because it drives a lot of education pieces as well. But then merge it into the manufacturing pieces, like, oh man, manufacturing stuff is still,
yeah, definitely non-trivial.
That is what I'll be trying to solve in 2017 as well.
Well, that's a problem. It's going to get worse and better at the same time because all that stuff's going to get cheaper, and it's going to get even more tempting to start with it.
Yeah,
and manufacturing difficulty is always going to be there because you're just not buying something from a store and marking it up and adding your software. So,
right. Yep. What are you both excited for about the new year as we go into it?
I mean, there's a lot of things I'm excited about. I'm starting
How about technology stuff?
Contract, but I can't really talk about my new contract.
Stuff,
so not so much that. I think we're finally going to join the real 3D printer people.
Yes, after not making the cheap 3D printer do anything useful at all, we're going to take that lesson and spend more money on one.
Yeah.
Thanks.
What are you going to do? What are you going to get?
I think we're looking at the Lulzbot Mini right now, which seems
I like
to
the
have,
stuff.
as far as these things go, seems the most out of the box kind of works.
We have a monoprice Mini after Brian Benchoff wrote up that they were not, that they were actually a pretty good deal for $200.
Yeah.
And we got a few things out of that. But
what do you want to build? That's really the question.
So I have airplane parts for my radio controlled planes and stuff that I would love to be able to build.
So do you use like Make XYZ or anything like that?
What's that?
That's like the service where other people in the area have printers.
Oh, no.
And you just
people. You.
There's not that so much, but there's a kind of a barrier to entry of that. Of like, if I have to, I'm very easily.
What about like Shapeways?
Dissuaded. Shapeways, but
So this is the exact same argument that I was given when I got my mill, and I should have listened to it, of course. And I'm now passing along to both of you, and you won't listen to it either, and that's fine because I like toys and you like toys, and I have a 3D printer, and it's like, of course I didn't listen, but maybe if one person listening, print 5 things on Shapeways first.
Yeah.
That would be a good test.
That was always my bar. And then that monoprice came in so cheap. And I was like, fine. And then having spent a week looking at Thingiverse things that I actually wanted to print and I wanted to have. That was when I
found something?
They were putting together that puzzle thing. I wanted at each step of the puzzle for him to actually solve a physical puzzle. Like they have these clip out dinosaur things.
Yeah.
And so you had to. So they're mostly flat and they're like 30-minute prints. They aren't really huge, but they clip apart and then you have this ridiculous dinosaur skeleton. or there were little airplanes that looked like that. And I could get into that. And I wanted to send some Christmas ornaments to various people, and they would be, modified for us or them. And I got to the point where I had been in that you should just buy something from Shapeways 5 times before you seriously consider this. But having played with the printer and having spent some time on Thingiverse, there's stuff there that I would want to do. And I think that if I had the printer and was able to print those things, I would start modifying them. And I think that is how I'm going to learn to do CAD. I don't think my plan of learning to do CAD in order to build some complicated thing is a good thing. I should learn to do CAD so that I can modify that, and then I will have it, and it will be a much easier path.
Yeah. That's a good idea. I mean, it's tough with the CAD stuff. I don't know. The starting from an STL is always tough because it's just a wireframe. So you won't have the parameters, but you might be able to. What are you trying to learn?
Just generally, how to modify it, how to put my initials on it, stupid crap like that. How to take a puzzle that I don't think goes together as well as it might, and modify it so it's a little better, and post it back to Thingiverse as a derivative, and nothing important. I mean, I'm not doing it.
No. I meant what kind of software?
Oh, I would probably go for the Fusion 360 because there's so many tutorials, and if I ever do want to do it professionally, that is a better skill set.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you'll learn some things quickly about that as well.
This may be a terrible plan.
No, it's not a bad plan. It's just that it starting from STLs means that like you'll have. So it's basically like what would the equivalent be? It's not quite like having the bit file. It would be like
having the assembly.
It'd be like having the assembly.
Yeah.
When you expected C, and then
Well, there are some Thingiverse things that seem to have more files.
Yeah, but those are usually SCAD, unfortunately. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never actually seen a Fusion 360, but you might be able to go on the Fusion 360 has that like shared cloud thingy. That actually might be, because if you have a parametric model, that I totally agree that like taking an existing parametric model and like modifying it or adding to it, that first off shows you why parametric modeling is so important in the first place, because you're like, oh, it said 5 millimeters, and then I typed in 7 millimeters, and then everything that was based on that 7 millimeters adjusted, and it's magical, and oh my god. Yeah, it's really awesome.
So other things I'm excited about, VR, because we've mentioned this on our show a few times. I did not expect to fall in love with VR this year. I did not.
What year did you expect to fall in love with it?
Never. My vision's pretty poor. I figured that was never going to be something that worked for me. I get car sick in parking lots.
Oh, God.
And so I figured that virtual reality was always going to be vomitorium.
Title.
It's part of the experience. Yeah.
And yet, Chris got the Vive VR set, and he was playing with it, and he said, you should try this. And I said, okay, but if I feel queasy, I'm taking it off. And I took off the helmet and I said, no, this should not be in your office where you play games. It should be in the living room because I want to play with it all the time. And I have racked up more hours.
Okay, I was wondering about that too. Like, is that something that you use more often?
Yeah, she tends to use it for exercise, where I tend to play games more. So,
okay,
and the games, I don't know. They're kind of different experiences. It's all exercise with that thing, though. Even the games are exercise to a certain degree. So I can't do it for as long as I would sit and play a first-person shooter 5 years ago or something.
Right, but that's probably a good thing overall too, right? As an experience. Yeah, I am excited about that. I think the learning opportunities and just I think. Well, I tried it at your house. I visited both of you, and I was very grateful to get to try it. But I think you pointed out the experience. It's not just games; it's also experiences, and that part really stuck with me. And I think that from a learning opportunity and all that other stuff, I think that's what really excites me. I mean, games are fun, but
I've seen a number of YouTube videos where they take them to like nursing homes, and they'll recreate somebody's experience from when they were younger, Like, oh, this person always liked to go to this particular beach. Okay, we got that set up, and they'll put it on somebody who's in their 80s or 90s, and their faces they'll just be amazed because they're re-experiencing something they never thought they would experience. There's all sorts of stuff like that.
Well, there was that Google Maps thing that's new.
Yeah, Google just came out with Google Earth, or Google Earth for it. Yeah.
You can fly around and stuff.
I kept wanting to do the street view. I wanted to go to Paris and walk around, and that's not what it is yet.
Yeah.
But it's a yet.
Oh,
it will be. There will be a time when I can go visit the Louvre.
Well, you can visit it. You're just not as detailed at the street level as street view is.
No, it's the top level. It's the satellite view. But, I mean, they've taken the cameras all the way through that museum.
Right. Oh, inside.
Yeah. So I want to go walk there. And
and if so just like the changing face of tourism kind of a thing, that idea.
And if anybody's thinking about getting a treadmill or an exercise bike, I would seriously look at VR too, because it is great exercise.
That's awesome
and really fun.
And they're coming out with.
And it's probably, I mean, it's cheaper than most treadmills too. So
they're coming out with wireless for it this year, which apparently actually works. So I'm kind of interested to see how that goes.
Oh yeah, when that cable's gone, that'll be nice.
Things I am excited about. Whatever SpaceX or Tesla is up to next year. Not necessarily from a consumer point of view, just, SpaceX is always doing cool stuff, and they're going to get back to flight in January. And Tesla's doing the self-driving stuff more and more, so be interested to see how that comes up against the realities of regulation and stuff.
You had that video today you showed me where the Tesla had an alert when the car ahead of the car that it was following, so 2 cars ahead, braked suddenly, and the car in front of it hit the car ahead of it, but the Tesla had already had the collision warning and the people had already started slowing down. It was like, hey, those people are going to crash, and you should slow down now because you don't really want to be part of that. And it ended up being a 3-car crash.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Wait, but the Tesla wasn't part of it, right?
No.
The Tesla wasn't part of it because the Tesla said, hey, we should slow down.
Well, probably would have.
It's like the Tesla was part of it, but it knew it was coming.
If they were paying attention, they would have stopped anyway.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they did have time to stop, but they would have stopped a lot closer.
Yeah.
Any other year, I would probably say I was interested in whatever Apple was doing, but I'm completely not-interested in Apple. They've succeeded in completely alienating me this year. So
is this the first podcast with my new non-Apple computer?
No, you've done a couple.
Oh, have I? All
right. Wait, you're both off the platform?
Oh no, I'm not off the platform. I don't think I can actually leave the platform, but.
But dear Apple, we had a big check.
I'm not throwing big money at them. Let's put it that way.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it makes sense. I think that's probably going to be. Hopefully, people. Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm actually more interested in seeing what Microsoft is up to, and they seem to be doing. Some cool hardware. Doing some good
stuff, I guess. Yeah.
What about you? What hardware? Or what are you interested in? What are you excited about?
So I've been very nervous about the environment since certain recent events, and I still am. And I think that there's a lot of important stuff that needs to happen with that. But the thing that I am most excited about is I fly a lot now, right? And I still get super excited whenever I see a field of wind turbines, and I still get excited when I see a solar field and stuff like that. And I know that living in California, you probably see that a lot more on houses and stuff like that anyways, but I am super excited about just the plummeting cost of solar, especially. I just think that it's so. Actually, I'm at my parents' house in Buffalo right now too, and
I was just going to mention
Musk also. Mr. Musk also has a project out here. So that used to be Solar City, but then now it merged with Tesla again, right? And they have the biggest solar panel factory in the States. Will be opening here. So that's a good news. They just inked some. I just was watching local news with my parents. That was fun. But they were talking about they just inked some deal with Panasonic too. So, just in general, I think that the availability of solar. I talked to Martin Lorton about that stuff a lot too, and I don't know. It's just
Yeah,
that feels like future stuff to me, and I think we're moving into that regardless of other global politics stuff, and that feels really good, and I'm happy about that.
I totally agree with you, and I think, solar is exciting, and it's exciting because it's not something that can really be stopped. It's not like you can will the world to go back to something that's more expensive and dirtier.
Right.
And once solar reaches a certain a certain cost per watt, it really doesn't matter what anybody does. That's what the market's going to do.
And that's always been the thing too. It's like it's always about getting to that economic point where it's not like don't make it a political issue anymore, right? Just make it when it just becomes a pure economic issue. That is the best case scenario.
Yes.
Right. When Farmer Joe is telling me the same thing as Metropolitan Pete, like that's the best case scenario because they're both looking out for themselves, and like that's what I want. That's what I've always wanted. So the fact that we're moving into that realm, fantastic. I'm really excited about that. And other stuff that I'm excited about, even though I talk about how disruptive it'll be, is automation. Man, I don't know where that train's going, but it is going somewhere fast, and it is going to be messy. And I think that also goes into self-driving cars and stuff. But
self-driving cars. Think of all the truckers in 10 years. That's a big industry that's gone.
Yeah, and that's that. There's that book by the MIT guys. The I forget what the guy had a really funny name, but he talks about that whole thing about how disruptive that'll be to the transportation industry. I'm not looking for like economic strife. I just don't know where it's going. And I will reiterate that like robotics, automation, people listening to the Amp Hour, it's like you're in the electronics field. That is, that's your bread and butter right there, right? That is, I think sensor systems as well on self-driving cars is a big field of opportunity for our listening audience. But automation in general, like, if you haven't started your company, start it now. You know what I mean? Like, it's a really big deal. So, yep. That's my stuff.
So what are you working on these days?
So I am actually working on a prototype with a friend in the automation industry, for just a proof of concept for a simple thermocouple measuring device kind of thing, and but I'm going to do it in MicroPython too, just to see how fast I can get it done. So
neat.
That's what I'm doing, just to see how few lines of code it'll be and how easily it'll get implemented. And then I'll call both of you to make it into a real product for me, the firmware.
Sure.
What were you thinking? No.
Yeah. We talked about that a little bit, didn't we? The taking and you said that both of you get the inquiries about.
It's usually
I have an
Arduino
Arduino project.
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
I have an Arduino project. I want to make this a product.
I have an Arduino project. I want to decrease the battery by 4x, I want it to be 1/4.
The power, yeah.
And I want it to last for 6 times longer than it has ever lasted before. It crashes intermittently, and I don't know why. And production starts next week. And my rate for that scenario is much higher than my normal rate, just in case anybody wonders.
Well, it's so insidious because they go to investors and it's working. It's fine. Look, it works. It's
right.
It's in the same form. We're going to ship it. The electronics work. The software. It's all working, except it's
firmware update doesn't work, but that's just a feature.
Yeah, that's just details.
Right. Ship 1,000 and then we'll fix it.
Yeah.
With a programming cable. We'll send a programming cable.
And an engineer.
Yeah, right. It's like one of those shrinky dinks that you add water and then it expands into an engineer.
Great. I do think that is an exciting area of growth for our industry, because many of the things we used to that seemed magic before are becoming more commonplace and more people can do them. But
it's automation.
That step between having a prototype and having something you can ship seems bigger than it did last year. Maybe because the bar of having a prototype has gotten lower.
Yeah.
And yet the bar of having something you can ship isn't changed. So it's a bigger distance.
When that bar changes, that's when we're out of jobs.
Yes.
I don't think. I honestly, do you actually fear being out of jobs as firmware engineers?
Not for at least 10 or 15 years, probably.
Yeah, I don't fear not having a job. I fear getting bored of what I have.
That's a separate issue.
That's a separate issue and much scarier.
Agree.
Because I do feel like for the last 2 years, I have seen the same projects over and over again.
Right.
I mean, sensors have gotten cheaper and BLE has gotten cheaper. And can we please stop sticking sensors on BLE and shoving them on bodies?
Yep.
Hey, it sells.
Yeah, they skip all the cool sensors too, right? Like no one has used that LDC 1000.
What is that one?
You know that one?
Mm-mm.
It's the inductive. It's the inductive converter from TI. It tells you when. Basically, it's just an inductor, like a resonant coil inductor, and then it tells when metal's nearby it. I just figured like someone would put that with a Bluetooth. I don't know what they would use it for, but it feels like there would be something else. I don't know. Yeah, like a mini stud finder. Yeah.
There was this whole branch of MEM sensors that were going to be chemical sensors.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like those have reached their promise. I wanted a lot of those.
Yeah, there were entire reactive little chemical reactors on a chip that they were coming out with and to do detection of various gases and things.
I feel like that stalled.
I don't know if it's stalled necessarily or if it's really expensive and it's only in,
niche,
lab equipment. That's
tough too when there's like if it's not all silicon on the chip, right? Because then it gets really if you can make everything out of silicon, then it's just a processing. It's just a simple, couple extra steps of processing in the fab. But if there's other stuff on there, that can get fancy and weird.
Yeah.
What are both you building? That you could talk about.
Well, I'm still my airplane is in parts. I put an autopilot on it, which I haven't tried out yet.
Oh, cool.
Because last time I flew it, got some good video. I got a little far away, and it decided that it wasn't cooperating with my control anymore for a couple of seconds. So,
and you were flying over the ocean at the time, so it was a little more exciting.
Right. So I would like it to come back instead of just decide to take a roll and dive.
Oh no!
And then you've been spending a lot of music. At your jobs.
Yeah, my
and
brother
not just the music part, but getting them set up and getting them tuned the way you want.
Yeah, and I've been practicing a lot. My brother and I are working on some tunes, so that's occupying a lot more time than technology.
New embedded theme song coming out?
I keep thinking about that, but I don't have any good ideas for that. So probably sometime.
Let's see. What have I been working on?
Calculus.
Yes. Well, I was trying to play with 3D printer.
Calculus. What's calculus? Is that?
Well, I took most of December off and decided that I wanted to learn something, and I spent a little time doing code stuff just so I had more stuff in my GitHub repository. But what I really wanted to do was to work on calculus. I want to be able to look at a calculus problem and be able to solve it. It has just always annoyed me that I feel dumb about integration. It has been 20 years since I didn't know what that S symbol meant. And I know what it means, but I'm still not good at it.
That was my entire rationale for going to grad school, right?
God
damn it, I don't understand physics. Well, I'll just go get another degree.
So I asked my math prof.
Weird decision points in your lives.
Yes.
I asked my math prof sister-in-law if there were any good books, thinking I'd buy one. And she pointed me towards this free book online that is designed more for people who care about applications than about theory. So it's not so much proofs as it is you have sand trickling in at 3 centimeters per second.
Ooh, word problems.
Yes.
Yeah.
and massive amounts of word problems. Those. And I'm working on it and I enjoy it. I read a biography of Ada Lovelace, and it said she liked to do calculus problems in her free time. And I'm like, that's so cool. That's such a nerdy thing. I wish I could do that. And then then those words kind of reverberated in my head. Like, I wish I could do. Why aren't you? So,
right.
So
you're going to share the name of this book, right?
Oh, gosh, really? Because I don't know the name of it.
You can't say free calculus book online and then everyone will be like, no!
Transcendental problems. I mean, the whole name is terrifying. But yes, I will talk to Christopher for a second.
Hey, Chris.
Hey,
so
what's up, man?
how's it going?
What kind of music do you play again? I don't know if, so people that don't listen to Embedded yet.
So the band I was in with my brother a while ago was sort of roots rock, so surf and blues rock kind of stuff. Nothing really after 1975 sort of style, although we did a lot of original things. Lately he's been writing a lot of kind of guitar instrumentals, which are more in the Van Halen kind of realm of things. So I've been putting drums on those for him and bass and stuff. So
you ever thought of building your own like MIDI triggers for drums and stuff?
You know, I thought about things like that, and I'm getting to the point where I'm tired of. I just want to use stuff instead of build stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so
no, I get that.
There was a point at which I stopped being interested in Linux because I realized I was no longer interested in tweaking and customizing things, and I just wanted stuff that worked. Yeah. I've kind of come to that with music. Although on the other hand, I have thought about adding, building onesie-twosie triggers or some sort of weird instrument that only I understand or something like that. But for stuff I can just buy, I'm just gonna buy it.
Yeah. Right. That's cool.
But yeah, no, it's been fun, and I haven't played that much in a few years since I left the band. So this is giving me an opportunity to start practicing again and realize how much I've lost.
It's the same. It's almost the exact same problem as like if you don't have that final thing that you want to build, right, for electronics or software or whatever you're doing, right? It's the same thing, but like now if you don't have the band, there's there's less reason to be.
Yeah, the band was like
that sounds really terrible.
Taking up 6 to 7 hours a week of I had to do this, right? And it's like, well, now it's hard to get my butt down here and practice for 3 or 4 hours just by myself. So
and so that's actually a link that I wanted to bring up too. The I had posted a link in the show notes that we had done beforehand, but there was this really good. So I love this site Raptitude. It's been going for a couple of years, but and then there's another one from Asimov, the science fiction writer, right? And it was just about it's kind of like just in either case, right? Once you do have that problem or the thing you want to solve or the thing you want to build, it's just about spending the time, right? And that's kind of the thing I've been struggling with for a lot of my life, where I'm like, I'm looking for the shortcut. I'm looking for the, what is that one trick that I can do to get better at this thing? It's like
that piece of gear.
Chris, you want to get better at
that one?
Exactly.
That one book that will teach you the right way.
Yep. I remember actually from music too. I remember I waited for the guitar, right? I was like, I'm going to get this one guitar, and I got it, finally got it after months of saving. And I'm like, and I played it, and it sounded just like the other guitar I had.
Exactly.
Like, what happened? And then my friend picked it up, and he made it sound beautiful. And it was like the most like codifying moment where it was like, oh, right. He practices a lot more than me. That's what I should be doing the whole time, right? It's like, it's more about it's not the wand, it's the magician kind of thing.
Yeah, there's the same story about Ted Nugent and Van Halen. Ted Nugent visited Van Halen in his studio and was really excited because he was going to finally play it through Van Halen's equipment and sound like Van Halen. He picked up the guitar and he played it, and he's like, wait, I still sound like me. I don't sound like you. It's like, yep, that's because it's not you. It's not the equipment, it's the hands.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's the same thing for looking at other people's code, or in this case, the Raptitude thing I'm talking about is like reading quicker, right? That's what he was talking about, and it's just you just got to spend the time, right? It's just like, dang, it sucks the reality of it, but it's also freeing. So
yeah, so the important part of spending the time is learning to make that not boring, finding ways to spend the time and enjoy doing that. That's the real hard part.
Well, I think if you're working towards that final product too, I think that helps, right? If you guys have the monoprice 3D printer, right? If you really needed that little widget for whatever you needed for, eventually you're going to make the 3D printer work, right? I mean, I know you did, but you also just keep going through it and going through it and going through it, and you'll get better at the end from it. So. You can also buy your way out of it.
Yes. And
there's limits sometimes, right? Do I want to be a 3D printer maintenance expert? No. So
right.
And I hit that limit last week or whenever I was really playing with it. That I realized that this wasn't how I wanted to spend my time. I would rather go buy other things for my puzzle game than to do this for another hour. And it wasn't even that there wasn't material. I mean, people have written about this printer. They have all kinds of advice. Some of it's even useful. But I was sick of sitting there watching it print and fail.
Well, that's the other problem is you can't really tell if anything you've done has worked for hours.
Like so much like hand waving. There's so much voodoo.
So what's the book?
It is.
Oh yeah, Lisa's back.
It's called Single Variable Calculus Early Transcendentals from David
So transcendentalism
Gishard.
wasn't it?
But this came from the aimmath.org, American Institute of Math.org. And they have a list of online free textbooks that are approved for use in classrooms. And they have calculus, they've got linear algebra, which I know is one that Chris always says that's something you should be good at.
For engineers.
Liberal or arts math? I like that one.
What?
Liberal arts math. That's the first one on the list. Yeah.
But mathematical computing, they're just textbooks.
That's cool.
And many of these textbooks, you search, like the one I'm using, which is the first one under calculus. If you search for the problem online, you not only get the answer, you get it worked out, which is great because
that's awesome.
Sometimes, I mean, if I go through and I do a bunch of problems, and if I can't figure out how to get the answer in the back of the book, I do want to know why. But this does involve a lot of time of just sitting there working on it, and there is no shortcut. Or if there is, the end product is not as good. The goal here is to learn stuff, not just to have done stuff.
You never hear people like, I have the solution to all your problems. Work on this for 10 years and you'll figure it out at the end.
Exactly.
It's
okay. If you've never heard somebody say that, let me say it right now. I have the solution to your problem. Work on it for 10 years.
What if it's like a
buy
clogged
it for
drain?
me for $19.95 a month.
For 10 years.
For 10 years, yeah. Actually, the partial truth there is, I sort of tried to do that, but yeah.
Well, no.
We'll leave that out. We'll edit that out, right? Yeah. But even that, I mean, if you don't put the time in, it's not going to matter.
It's a class.
It's just,
Yeah.
No,
I don't think
that's what learning
you're trying
comes
to
down
teach something, and teaching is hard. I mean, and teaching helps you learn it better. We've covered it all. I think we should end the podcast soon because clearly we've covered it all.
Yeah.
Also, I'm hungry.
Okay. Well, okay.
What else did you want to talk about? I did like this Medium article about Asimov. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. He was prolific. I didn't realize how much he wrote.
Oh, he's incredible.
It's yeah.
And he wrote not only the fiction, he wrote about science in a way that was so approachable.
Mm.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
If you
I can't say I've actually ever read any Asimov. I know that's really. I'm sure Dave would be yelling at me if he was here, but.
Oh my God! No.
It's a good try. Give that about 10 years. Your Aussie accent will get better.
I like Asimov. He's a really good author. But I grew up on him, so,
Yeah.
Of course I was going to like him. All right. Christopher, do you have any other questions?
Oh, questions? What?
I'm heading back to our outline.
I thought we were on the amp hour. Where's his outline?
Let's see. Chris Gamble, do you have any last thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
We didn't go through the amp hour links on the subreddit, so we can just do that now.
No, let's do it.
No, our links.
Rapid fire.
No, it's fine. No.
I got it right here.
There are a lot of great links. I'm sure we'll talk about those in later weeks.
Dye photo analysis of the revolutionary 8008 microprocessor.
Alan Yates discussing how the Valve lighthouses work. No, you should just come listen to our podcast because that was one of my favorite this year.
No, it's on YouTube. Kids like YouTube.
I've referenced that like 3 or 4 times. So on this show,
the AirPods get 0 of 10 iFixit repairability. And have bad solder joints on their BGA. Wow.
Yeah, they're really bad. I don't know.
This is
People
cool.
can check out the subreddit. They can check out your Patreon, which is patreon.com/embedded, right?
Right.
That is true.
Yeah.
And they can check out your Patreon.
Oh.
Which is...
Yeah. Oh.
/ the Amp Hour.
Me?
Yes.
Where can they find your Twitter?
For Embedded, it's Embedded FM. For me, it's Logical Elegance.
Oh, I'm Stony Monster.
You should have like a voice that you do with that, like, I'm Stony
Nah,
Monster.
we come out like Elmo or something.
Stony Monster.
Well, all those links on the Amp Hour subreddit also get tweeted out on the Amp Hour Twitter, so that's another good thing. So you can follow that. I would not recommend following me or Dave on Twitter.
What?
What?
Yeah. There's nothing good there. There's nothing good there.
I follow you on Twitter. You have amusing things sometimes.
Sometimes.
Hey, given how many people I have unfollowed in the last 3 months...
Yeah. There's a 2017 thing. Build more stuff, be on social media less, man.
Yes.
I don't. I've been already doing that. And I don't miss it. Yeah.
Feel better about yourself. Stop going to social media.
Yeah. Feel better about everything. Yeah. Yep. Well, thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it, and
Well, thanks for being on our
keep
show.
up the good work of 2017.
Yes.
Yeah.
It has been fun talking to you. And thank you to Chris Gamble for being on the Amp Hour. Thank you to Christopher for producing and co-hosting. Thank you to Chris Gamble for probably editing this. Whee! And of course, thank
Yay.
you for listening to the Embedded Hour, the Amp Hour, the Embedded, the Amp Hour Embedded Holiday Spectacle. Spectacle.
Spectacle. Yeah, it's been a spectacle.
That was just water, right?
Yes.
All right, we'll talk to you in the new year.
Have a good one.
Talk to you later, Chris.
Bye. Embedded is an independently produced radio show
So
that
is the Amp Hour.
focuses on the many aspects of engineering.
But we're kind of
It is
only
a production
electronics.
of Logical Elegance, an embedded software consulting company in California.
And we don't have a
If
company.
there are advertisements in the show, we did not put them there and do not receive
We
money
didn't put
from
any
them.
ads either.
At this
We haven't
time,
had
our
ads in a long time.
sponsors are Logical Elegance and listeners like you.
And this week, the Amp Hour, right?